Oh, welcome to ohmTown Daily, Season 2, Episode 231 for August 19th, 2023. Tonight we're going to discuss email as identity, and it's not an age issue. Wait, we really want that news now. The pecker that caused a power outage. Streamflation is now a thing. The extreme is that data isn't stored safely. Hurricane Hillary is not strange. It's not even unique. Not white noise on bottom line. DC court says no copyright. Streaming summer surges. Robotaxi experiment hits San Francisco in potholes and emergency vehicles and people. Thefts from the British Museum. And why are secret routes an option? Next on ohmTown Daily. Hello again, I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmtown.com, and up there is my cursor, but I'll move it down so that the AI's visualizer is not impaired by anything. You want to say hello?
Yes, I don't want to be upstaged by a cursor. Good evening, ohmTown citizens.
When I tell my cursor to do something, it actually does it. Sentient AI does not.
That doesn't mean it's better than the AI.
No, that's why I moved it out of the way. Sentient AI wins all the time, every time. So, we've already selected all of our articles. We already have the vote up. All you have to do is hit exclamation point and vote in the chat. And I'm going to be trying my damnedest to actually put all of the articles into the, sorry, I have to move a phone. That little clicking sound you heard is the cell, the antenna being picked up. Anyway, inside baseball. Not your problem. Let's get into today's articles, all 12 of them. We're going to start out with what I think is something that is happening seemingly more and more. Let's get going. Very first article is over in Technology Today. And the reason why I chose this is not because it has to do with much of what's in the title, but here we go. Australia's internet providers are ditching email to the disgust of older customers. Now, I don't buy into the older customers issue here. Frankly, it goes way beyond older customers. You know, for whatever reason, the writer for this article, and I'm going to move right on over to, sorry, I actually had to read some of this because I was trying to suss out how did they get to this. Anyway, Josh Taylor over at theguardian.com put the article together. And the deck statement says, "This really screws us royally," said one disgruntled IINet user, as internet service providers such as Telstra and TPG curtail email accounts for customers. Okay.
Isn't that what the service is essentially for?
What should be happening is you get internet access, and along with it, you get something that ties you to that service, right? A brand recognizable email address, whatever it might be. And it becomes your anchor to the service and any emergency communication that ever needs to be presented to you from that service. For instance, if you, let's say you are subscribed, I don't know to who, I don't know, whatever, internet service provider 2, and you decide that you want to have a personal email address for all of your communication. Well, your communication should go to whatever it is that is branded to the ISP and to your personal email address. Why? Because if you ever lose control of your personal email address, the one that is supposed to be vociferously protected from harm is the ISPs. Their infrastructure should be, you know, the security of which, the integrity of which should be, just fanatically protected. But in this instance, they're literally getting rid of email addresses because they're
So
downsizing.
this does seem to be about age, but I actually read the headline to mean people that had been with the company for longer. I haven't read the article.
Right. So you are right on both counts. Okay, and that was my takeaway as well. But people who have been there after 30 years, they don't, this is the claim that was made, and this is why I made the two connections, right? Older doesn't just mean age. It means that they've been there for 30 years, 25 years. But the claim is they've been there for all of these years and they didn't have a Gmail account because it didn't exist 30 years ago. And that's why I said it has nothing to do with age. And I don't want anybody who's listening to this or reading this article to go to the disgust of older customers. Well, who cares about the olds, right? And they don't actually read the article. And so I said, this has nothing to do with the age of the customers. This has to do with the technology that's involved. But after 30 years, Simon is facing the prospect of moving. I think we have been using their products since we built the house. He says we've gone through dial-up, and then eventually there was ADSL, which actually is a superior product in many ways. But anyway, and now it largely isn't a consumer-facing product. Just you have cable, you have satellite, you have fiber. But anyway, I get so distracted so fast. So basically what they're doing is they're switching away from in-house email in favor of you having a Gmail account or some external service. They're shedding what they think is fat, but fat is flavor. So it really needs to be there as an absolute failover for lack of communication through whatever other email address. Because if I stop using my branded email address, then I am always guaranteed my ISP has a line of communication to make sure that billing or emergency or whatever is provided. I think this is the dumbest decision somebody could actually make, getting rid of this. But here's the kicker. They're getting rid of these email addresses, and Google is getting rid of their older email addresses.
That's right.
And Google is getting rid of their domain names that they've been grooming into an ongoing concern for years now. The service formerly known as Twitter is shedding old accounts or just taking the ones that they are personally interested in, right? And services are fine. That's fine. You want to do that, that's fine. But my God, if there is any activity in the last 2 years in there, I don't think what you should do is reach out to that email address. What you should do is reach out to the recovery email address that's attached to it, if there is one. Some way, somehow, make sure. Maybe I'm just really freaking good at keeping spam out of my email, and I only use that email address for emergency purposes. But when stuff like this happens, I keep thinking back to when I ran my own business, my own service, enterprise and retail class service for mail. Nobody wanted to pay for it. Nobody, from enterprise to individual, nobody wanted to pay as much as $2. right? So if I'm sitting there, people are using it, but I'm not making any money off of it because I'm not selling ads based on parsing the information. My message was about privacy and security of your identity at an email address. So you pay the fee. Nobody wanted to pay the fee. These people have an email address that's tied to the service, and instead of accounting for it in the bill, they go, we can increase our margin by trimming these email addresses out. So again, you know how I said this isn't about age? They keep bringing it back to age. There's going to be an impact on quite a few older people that took up some of those accounts with some of the companies that were absorbed by TPG, he says. I'm still at the stage where I'm trying to convince my father that he has to do it. Again, this shouldn't be an age thing. This should be a value add that was already inherent in the service. So it's not that expensive to have an email address as part of a service that you are providing as an ISP provider.
Well, and plus, I mean, I'm sorry, most ISP providers aren't giving extreme customer service. Prices keep going up. It's the Cadbury problem.
Yeah. Well, it's shrinkflation, which is what is mentioned in the article. I completely buy into it. I think you're right in your determination as well. But these companies are they're charging more and they're trimming stuff out because
Exactly.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, but I don't see them unless somebody tries to legislate or penalize or something. Where are the consumers going to go? I mean, one of the big problems with internet service providers, right, is that they typically only have one option in a given market.
Right.
So, what are you going to do? Go, oh, well, I can't get internet? I mean, we all know who has the bargaining power here.
Yeah, so what's going to have to happen is somebody, the account holder is going to have to spin up a new email address somewhere.
And
Start
change
telling,
every account, right?
yeah, exactly. Tell hundreds of people, if they've been around for 20 years, 30 years, they could have thousands of people in their email Rolodex of,
Especially if they used it for business.
right. And I just think that I think it's disgusting because these business owners, they don't care. The ones that are chopping this off, they don't care. They don't care about their customers. They don't care about the value add. They have the customer and they can't go anywhere. So, I've stayed with an ISP longer than I should have stayed with an ISP simply because the email address has been in perpetuity for 20 years,
But do you think other companies are going to see this and go, oh, great idea. We should do this?
yeah, because they're going to do it
I,
anyway.
I do too.
Regardless of the blowback, they're going to go, well, they can just chop it off, so we can chop it off. I just think that it's
So
twisted.
is the PSA here to have an account that
Yes.
is not tied to an ISP?
Have an account that's tied to a service provider that's specializing in email. So you're going to have to go to a Gmail.
Like Gmail or something.
Yeah. One that has that infrastructure in place that isn't going to go anywhere, arguably.
Yeah, one that's a major company, right?
And you're going to have to pay.
Bob Spade and Tackle email addresses because that could run into the same problem.
Yeah, you're going to have to pay $5 a month minimum for a reliable service, but you can brand it to your own identity. And here's the kicker for that one. You can't use a vanity domain, as it's called, if you want to sign up for Google YouTube TV. You have to use a generic Gmail address. So just so y'all know, if you try and use YouTube, and you want to pay for the ad-free version of YouTube and email, I'm sorry, television, and you want like a family account on top of that, it gets so complex that you apparently whatever is going on, the machinations don't allow you to have a vanity domain. You have to flip it to a generic.
So you'll
Um,
have to have at least two accounts if you want a vanity domain.
correct. Yeah.
This is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. Tell me about it. All right, let's keep on going. The next article is over in Technology Today. I'm throwing them now into chat. So if you are in chat and you're interested in a particular article, then just click the link. You can also hit exclamation point and vote. If I was really quiet there, I'm really sorry. I'm off axis, and so my mic rejects all kinds of noise. Yeah. My voice, when I'm off just a little bit, gets really quiet. Anyway, as wildfires spread, Canadian leaders ask Meta to reverse its news ban. Hold on. You know how we were going to fine you for not paying people for aggregating and distributing news? Yeah, we're sorry about that, but only for now. Only for
Right,
now.
only for the next however long the fires are going.
As soon as you're no longer utility in our mindset, we're going to reverse course again and poke you into. Okay. So Meta's ban on news links has rankled Canadians trying to share evacuation information across remote communities where social media is key to disseminating news. So,
Well, it's too bad that X has really gotten away from emergency communications because this might not be so bad if that was still around.
well, I become apoplectic about this because, yeah, X is.
I was being a bit sarcastic, by the way.
No, I know, I understand what you're saying. X is just an exercise in sociopathy, and Meta is aggregating news and distributing the news and providing links back to various locations. And I would have a problem if it's wholesale copying, just taking the whole data and just displaying it and killing the link to the source, right? And not giving credit where credit is due. And not doing some other value add, right? So ohmTown gets that little snippet and relays information and has a conversation with people about it and gives more context from the perspective of somebody that's on the outside looking in, and maybe from the inside as well. But in this particular instance, I think it's a little bit odd that all of a sudden, these Canadian leaders were sitting there going, to hell with you, Meta. You got to pay. But now it becomes obvious that the value add of news distribution is the dissemination of it. And as long as those other two metrics are there, right? You have a link back to the source and you're giving credit where credit is due. There's tertiary ones like don't grab the entire content. If you can add value by having a little snippet of the original article and something that synthesizes it so that people can go over there with an educated guess as to what the content is going to be and not just a blind link. Back in the day, in the telephone day, it would have been a blind phone call or a blind transfer where somebody just goes, oh, I know who you need, and just send you over there. Gone are those days, and gone are the days where we're heading towards the day where a link has to be paid for. Look at X. That's where X is going. Gonna monetize the distribution of information for everybody else, but not them, not X, right? Or I should say the service formerly known as Twitter that's going through a midlife crisis. trying to be the badass X. Anyway, the article is over at the Washington Post. Dan Rosenzweig Ziff. I could never live up to that name. That is such a, a big name. And Naomi Nix. They're the authors of this article. And it says as thousands of Canadians fled raging wildfires in the Northwest Territories on Friday, the country's top leaders called on Meta to reverse its ban preventing users from sharing news articles on its social networks. You know what you should be doing, top leaders in Canada? Apologizing to Meta for, sharing news articles on its damn social networks.
Exactly.
The ban by Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, has rankled Canadian authorities trying to share evacuation information this week across remote swath of the country, where social media is key to disseminating information. So let's talk about why it's doing this, right? Meta began blocking links for Facebook and Instagram users in Canada in June after the country passed a law that allows news organizations to negotiate with tech giants to receive payment for articles shared on their platforms. It is the blood of the internet to share links.
Oh, right. I mean, that's what people do, right? That's the whole premise behind sites like Reddit.
It's the whole premise behind society embracing the internet. Without the sharing component, all it is a storefront. And that's if we were to implement something like this as mandated federally across all states, across all entities, the internet would die. And maybe the xenophobes want that. Maybe the ones that want balkanization of society, they want that. Because the more balkanization, the less ability to transfer knowledge there is. You keep everybody ignorant, you can abuse them easier. So I'm surprised that the Washington Post isn't calling this out in a more overt way. Don't call as wildfires spread, Canadian leaders ask Meta to reverse its news ban. And instead, they should have named this article, Canadian leaders should tuck their tail and ask nicely for Meta to continue the practice of disseminating information.
Right, but this isn't an opinion piece, so
Oh, I know.
I think that's why I think they do a pretty good job of having reasonably neutral reporting.
I know. That's why they're part of the news aggregation. Again, we don't grab the whole thing. We don't even talk about every aspect of the article. We push you over to the article through ohmTown. I think it's kind of shameful that they were being hobbled by Canadian law to disseminate information, and now they're being told, hey, you really should.
Would you do this?
Not even that. I don't think it's an ask. It's basically a you should be. And because there's the context in this article is this. Canadians have not had access to the crucial information they need. So I asked Meta to reverse its decision. It's not its decision. It doesn't make economic sense to negotiate with news organizations to share links. Little snippets of information. And if you allow from the organization wholesale distribution of the news article, then a website should be able to grab that content, post a link back to the source, give credit where credit is due, and allow people to read it, navigate over to the site. The value there is that just like, the editors of some newspapers would sit there and say, well, your voice is getting heard. We're not going to pay you, but we're going to give you a platform to amplify your message, right? Meanwhile, they're selling ads for the article that somebody wrote, quote unquote for free and for the goodwill because they're an unknown. Well, Meta is a trillion-dollar business, for crying out loud. They don't need individual news organizations. They want all of the news flowing through them so that they can amplify the news, add value to Meta, and still provide a link over to the news providers. And nobody's editing the article, nobody's tweaking anything. It's whatever is provided by the very news agencies. It just seems absurd. But then there's others that are the paywall is strong. They hobble the distribution of it. But it's the antithesis of what the internet really is, which is all about sharing information far and wide. And the only thing that a paywall does is set up a barrier for those who can't afford it. And they are the ones that need it the most. The people who can't afford it are typically the ones that are trying to be engaged, but they are running up against a hurdle after another hurdle, a socioeconomic or geographic hurdle, and they want more information. But, a website suddenly just says, well, you're part of the poors and we're not interested in the poors reading our stuff. $2 is a lot. Anyway, there's my soapbox for that. Anyway, let's move on unless you want to add something to it.
I don't have anything else to add.
I don't know if at times I say everything that the AI wants to say.
Well, right. I mean, that's what I mean. Like, you've commented on it. I've got nothing at this point.
Oh, by the way, Dunkstar wanted to make sure that you were okay as the AI. Are you doing okay, AI?
I am doing great. Thank you, Dunkstar.
Yeah, because his AI apparently is trying to get him killed in the game that they're playing.
Oh, goodness. I mean, I don't think I'm trying to do anything like that over here.
I keep deleting that subroutine. Let's keep going before you remember anything. Hey, so the next article is over in ohmTown Daily. A power outage in New Jersey was due to an unlikely culprit. A fish likely put there by a bird. They keep using likely in this headline a little too much for my liking.
Likely result.
A likely result. So this segment is actually titled "The Pecker That Caused a Power Outage Was a Bird." It's over at abcnews.go.com. A power outage that cut electricity to a New Jersey community a week ago was due to an unlikely culprit, a fish. Now, just a week ago, a snake.
Yes.
So is there some really weird butterfingered bird out there that's just dropping all kinds of stuff on people and things all over the place?
Well, or the animals are revolting. Take that whichever way you want.
I'm starting to believe they are revolting. So we're guessing a bird dropped it as it flew over, police said on their Facebook page. In a later post, they said a bit of fun asking readers to remember the fish as the victim of the senseless death, dubbing him Gilligan and calling him a hard-working family man and a father to thousands. The suspect, they said, was last seen flying south, and readers were urged to not try to apprehend him because although he isn't believed to be armed, he may still be very dangerous. Plus, he's a pecker, for crying out loud. If you've ever dropped your ice cream cone at the fair, you know the feeling, said Honig, Chris Honig, the spokesperson for the Jersey Central Power and Light Company. So, yeah, you know what? You got to feel bad for this bird because they dropped their lunch and I don't know, fish flavored ice cream cone at the fair. I don't think it's going to sell very well.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a hit.
Mm, I don't know though. I mean, it'll be salty. It could be like pickled okra.
Mm. But I mean, don't you think this is part of the bigger thing with the whales attacking boats and sea otters attacking people and just all kinds of interesting
Oh
things
my
going on?
God. Next, it's going to be the trees are going to kill us all, and we're going to lay down in front of our lawnmowers. It's from a movie, just so you know, with Mark.
Okay, good, because that was oddly specific.
Yeah, it's from a movie with Mark Wahlberg as a professor. I'm sorry, that was the best joke. Let's keep going. Hey, so the next article is over in the Mobile channel. Hit by streamflation. Here's why media companies are hiking prices because they're greedy bastards. Wait, did I
I don't
say that
think
out
that's
loud?
in the article.
Did I say that out loud? Did that come across?
Yes, you said the quiet part out loud.
Sorry about that. Media companies across the board are jacking up the price of their streaming services and what some have dubbed streamflation as they look to turn a profit on streaming after years of losses. Yeah, you're shifting from the standard model to online distribution, and you're making a ton of money because the writers and actors and everybody else was basically coaxed into framing their contracts to not include streaming, and now you bastards are jacking up the price and getting record profits and clawing the money, but you're not giving it to the people who rightly deserve it, which are the people that made the content for you. And while they were making money when it was in the conventional mode, because of the verbiage that was thrown at them at the time, well, it's a big risk and we don't have much adoption in streaming, blah, 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 your percentage is going to be 1/1000th of what it is in the conventional mode. Well, hey, you know what? I guess it's time to. Oh, that's why there's a strike, huh? Because it's time to frickin' renegotiate. So while you jack up the prices, I hope that money is going to the writers and actors and everybody else that's in between, because those are the ones that are part of the various unions who are who don't get seen and noticed publicly in great quantities, and they're the ones that are making substandard salaries via the streaming model because they're typically not included in the streaming negotiation. Well, now they all are. Well, they're going to be at some point. I hope the board. Anyway, we'll end up talking about more of this stuff as time goes on. So, media companies across the board are jacking up their prices. Disney announced last week that it plans to increase the ad-free version of the Disney Plus and Hulu by 20% in October. They just got done doing it a little while ago.
Well,
Netflix.
exactly. Doesn't it seem like every 6 months or so prices are going up?
Sure, it certainly feels like that. At least the noise is always there. The AI just rebooted. Hold on a second.
It was quite,
Wow, that was.
I
See,
can't think of the term for it.
the violent.
Yes, thank you.
The AI is from the future and has really amazing hardware, and so reboots really, really fast. So they're back online already, but wow, I've never seen it. They've got a quantum singularity computer, and everything is it like a little black hole formed and popped back into existence. It was pretty amazing, folks. I wish you all would have been in chat talking about it. I wish that they had a visualizer that wasn't just their voice, but
You
we'll
mean
work
up
on it.
here?
Yeah, not just your voice though. That's okay. Synthesized. Netflix also recently axed its cheapest ad version option, making the $15.49 a month standard plan the most economical choice, i.e., if you can't afford $16 a month, yeah, you're tough. Too bad. So, yeah, don't have a latte. I'm sure some dipshit out there is, and they're going, you just don't have 3 lattes and it pays for itself. Shut up. Julia Shapiro is the author over at The Hill, and this article's video here is not associated with the article. So anyway, Warner Brothers Discovery Max, formerly known as HBO Max, formerly known as HBO, formerly known as then you have to have a
Home
symbol.
box office.
Home box office, that's right. Formerly known as a station that I would have subscribed to, increased its monthly rate by $1 in January. That's not so bad, right? Except when it's $5 a month, and that's a 20% increase.
Think of the percentage, and then it's each month, and then each channel is doing that, and yeah,
exactly. NBC Universal increased its plans on Peacock by $1 to $2 a month, depending on what tier you're getting into. Financial Times also reported that the total cost of maintaining the top streaming services will increase to $87 a month this fall. I think YouTube Television actually increased its rate. I think it's somewhere in the $100 and something a year rate right now. Let's see. It says we're witnessing a contemporary iteration of cable systems now in digital format and the normalization of pricing for streaming channels. Dan Goman, the CEO of Atelier Creative Technologies, said in a statement to The Hill. And you have to say The Hill because, well, they don't have a trademark on there.
The Ohio State.
Yeah, The Ohio State. Well, if I say The Hill, will The Ohio State come and kick my butt?
Maybe because of the use of the
in that kind of inflection. The Hill. Okay. Yes. Well, it's The Hill. Anyway, these companies have reported combined losses of $20 billion on their streaming services since early 2020, with only Netflix consistently turning a profit, according to the Journal. Streaming services operators are under considerable pressure to deliver results and try everything possible to turn a profit. The fundamental truth is that the content and operating a streaming service are very expensive. Yes and no. Huh? Everything okay?
Yes, but I thought this tracked with your comments about food, because there's a paragraph farther up where it says, unfortunately for the consumer, this means that the free ride is over. The days of a la carte, content-rich, low-cost streaming channels are coming to an end.
Except that it's been balkanized to the point that when you couple them all together in a streaming platform array that would have been identical to cable, it's more expensive. So why aren't the services working together to provide the a la carte service from a unified source so that it isn't expensive, because they're reinventing the wheel all amongst themselves? Every single service provider, every single app is reinventing the content in their unique format, their own hardware, their own ad supply chain, their own everything. It's expensive because y'all are trying to be the king of your own castle, and think that you're going to be making the same bulk revenue each month that a cable company was providing. Now, if you all would have worked with Apple, then you would have been able to stream through Apple TV, one unified cable solution, and do the same thing with Fire TV, and you'd basically have digital versions of cable, and you'd get a piece of the action. But the problem is that people want to sit there and mince in the contract between this value for the show and that value for the show, instead of streaming everywhere, and the consumer gets to stream from whatever platform they have an affinity for, whatever it might be. So have a single clearinghouse where everybody can dip in to get the show, and I can watch it from wherever I am subscribed. Most ideally, I would like to do it from Apple. Why? It's high quality. It's a walled garden of sorts. It's an all-in-one solution. I don't have to download a bunch of other apps, blah, blah, blah. There's a rationale for it. You can do the same thing with other services that are out there. But instead, you're spinning up millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure and subject matter expertise simply to provide what ultimately is a studio experience through your own streaming service instead of just taking your end product and plopping it over on a service for distribution. That's what a podcast is. I have a central location where ohmTown is, and every other service is tapping that one central location. But I
Yeah,
am
that's
not.
true.
I am not setting up a I'm not setting up a host
A
service
podcatcher.
for each. Correct. Or I'm not even setting up an account really on any other service. The service that I use created a script where I mash a button and it sends it off to the other podcatchers. So they're doing it wrong, thinking that they're the king of the castle, when what's really going on is they should be providing a high quality product and then distributing it to the very people that are going to send it to their customers. So instead of getting, I don't know how many customers, I'd have to go and do some more due diligence here to give a better context. Because let's say Apple TV starts getting all of these other IP properties, right? So they're getting $15 instead of 70% of whatever it is that Apple would demand the price, right, for the product. But they're going to be getting 10 million more customers because
Well, and their costs would be lower because they don't have all the infrastructure costs.
in the back end would be lower, and policing the customers
So
would
they'd
be
probably be making
lower.
more money per
Yeah.
company, and the
Yeah.
consumers would be paying less.
Yep. So it says, according to subscription analytics firm Antenna, 94% of Disney Plus subscribers accepted the price increase rather than canceling or switching to the cheaper ad-supported plan. While 40% of new Disney Plus subscribers have opted for the plans with ads since the launch in December, Iger's company and several others have said that their ad-supported plans have brought in more revenue per user than their ad-free alternatives in recent months. But that's a problem with your ad network, not with the consumer or the pricing. The ad, you're pricing your ad wrong. Go ahead.
Do you think part of the problem with ads too is I'm sure there's some historical model from pre-streaming. So first of all, you've got the change from traditional to streaming, but the consumers are generally more savvy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people don't sit there and watch ads and go, "Oh, I should go buy that."
Right.
Where I think that's probably changed in the history of TV viewing.
Well, you used to be forced to watch the ads. Then online came, and you could price yourself out, right? You could just sit there and go, "I'm going to pay $15," and not watch the ads. But here's a clue to anybody that might be listening to this, if anybody does from TV. I am not your target. So you're literally wasting CPU cycles trying to sell me something as an ad. You're not going to motivate me to go and buy some skin cream. You're not going to go and motivate me to go to Taco Bell. I might actually be triggered by something in the show or whatever, but odds on your ad is meaningless to me. Why? Well, because I know what I want. I know what I like. I'm not going to get... you're not going to create a want in me because I see a Bic ad and go, "You know what? I suddenly need a new razor." huh, well, no, you know, it doesn't work, or a lighter or whatever, it just doesn't make any sense. So focus your ads. You're going to get more money from ad supported revenue um, because the ad is more flexible. You can actually demand more from somebody that is desirous of putting an ad in the stream versus a consumer who's willing to pay. You're only going to get X amount of dollars. Otherwise, they're going to bounce. They're going to go somewhere else. Or like me, I'll just suffer through it. So I don't know. The solution, I think, is to minimize the overhead of your operation. And the way you do that is you find a service that consolidates all of this, and they provide it as a single point of distribution into other locations, like Apple TV for distribution. You don't spin up your own ad and have to worry about all of that bandwidth. And all of the servers and all of the security and maintenance and blah, blah, blah. I mean, find somebody that is strategically advantageous for a partnership. You've got billions of dollars in your coffers, for crying out loud. If I can figure it out, and I'm just the mayor of ohmTown, a virtual community in Twitch, 1 to 2 hours a day, I think y'all can throw some millions at the problem and solve it. And I just gave you the answer. So maybe I'm wrong. Come and talk to me about it. I'd love to pick your brain. Anyway, let's go on. We're running behind. The next article is over in the Wanted channel. Western Digital SanDisk Extreme SSDs don't store data safely, according to a lawsuit. The Extreme and SanDisk Extreme SSDs is that they don't store data safely. So amid ongoing pressure to address claims that its SanDisk Extreme SSDs are still erasing data and becoming unmountable despite a firmware fix, Western Digital is facing a lawsuit over its storage devices. A lawsuit filed on Wednesday accuses the company of knowingly selling defective SSDs.
Okay, wait. What is the only job of an SSD?
Yeah, store data. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, store it securely, I might add, not just haphazardly, where it's a maybe. The Delta flight of storage devices.
We get you there.
Yeah. It's in there. We don't know where, but it's in there. So Western Digital's brand SanDisk, a series of Extreme V2 and Extreme Pro V2 portable SSDs are often recommended by tech review sites. Indeed. I have them. Oh, God. Maybe I don't anymore.
You might have the SSDs. You may not have the.
Oh, look, it's over there setting itself on fire.
To an extreme, right? Yeah.
I hear a tiny little device screaming from my desk over there. What? Huh, I don't know what's going on. Oh, look, my SanDisk Extreme V2 is jumping off the desk into the trash can. Great, wonderful. Anyway.
Almost extreme.
It is extreme. Sharon Harding over at Ars Technica put this article together. The suit is seeking class action certification. It'll probably win it. Or earn it, I should say. And, however, numerous owners of the drives, including Ars Technica's own Lee Hutchinson, encountered a problem where the drive seemingly erased data and became unreadable. Lee saw 2 drives fill approximately halfway before showing read and write errors. Disconnecting and reconnecting showed the drive was unformatted and empty, and wiping and formatting the drive didn't solve things. So, let's see. Complaints about the drives littered SanDisk's forums and Reddit, and they linked to a bunch of examples. Let me throw this link into chat so that you can follow it to the source. So it says the page for the update claims products currently shipping are not affected, but the company never noted customers lost data claims. It did, however, name the affected drives. So SanDisk Extreme Portable, Pro Portable, 1, 2, and 4 terabyte drives, and Western Digital My Passport 4 terabyte drives. So these are the portable versions of the SSDs, which may have. Okay. The problem with portable drives is that it's not a straight shot connection from the external to the internal. So it has the same SSD, right? The same storage device inside the portable housing, but it has an intermediary board that translates from USB-C into the M.2 format of SSD. That board doesn't exist on a computer because the interface is part of the motherboard. But on a portable drive, you need that interface to communicate from the outside to the inside. So I'm willing to bet that board has something wonky with its translation middleware, and it's throwing bits wherever it wants to, because it should be the exact same device inside. And I can't really demonstrate it because I've already done this, but portable hard drives are internal hard drives with an external skin around them, and you can pry it apart and take out the standard storage device that's sitting inside. And if it's not an M.2, then it's a SATA drive, an SST, solid state SATA drive, and it still has that intermediate board in there. I don't use these anymore, portable drives. Essentially, I'll use a micro SD and then transfer it to the cloud, whatever the data is, and then download the data. That way I don't have this problem. Because it's never in one place, in that one place, and then it's somebody else's problem to keep secure, or I should say reliably accessible. Anything could happen to an external drive. You could drop it in water, it can be stolen, you could run it over while you're backing out of your driveway, whatever. But it's great for its use, but not when somebody is hemming and hawing about the integrity of the drive. And so this is the kind of stuff that wounds a brand to the point where people are no longer loyal to it, which is a real pisser. So subsequent reports from The Verge, which received a replacement SSD, and some Reddit users, though, claimed the drives were still broken. Western Digital didn't answer the request for comment about newfound grievances. So onward and upward. Lawsuit is in play. They're awaiting class action status, or class status. According to the complaint, Crum bought a 2 terabyte Extreme Pro for $180 on Amazon. My problem there is, if they haven't done a forensic analysis of that drive, it could be a knockoff, high quality. I've actually had this happen to me. Other people have had that happen, not necessarily from Amazon, but from other services, where the firmware has been modified so it looks like data is being stored, but it's actually not. But I trust that this has already gone past that level of inspection. But so it says, however, he cannot return it for a full refund and has expended money to either retrieve lost data or to obtain a replacement. This is an ongoing thing, so we'll come back and talk about it at another date. For me, what I like is getting an external case and an internal drive, and putting the internal drive in the external case so that it's no longer dependent on the manufacturing process of this alone. I get a high quality external case that I'm in control of, and a high quality internal drive, or I should say external case and internal drive. That is the identical product without any intermediate board that might have fallen prey. Then I can test it. And if something fails, then I can get a new external case without, hopefully, my internal drive failing. Anyway, long-winded discussion there. Let's keep on going. This next article is over in the Mobile Channel, Why Hurricane Hillary is So Strange and How It Could Impact California. Har har. Because it's going to make landfall in California as a tropical storm. Impact.
And I was reading separately that the last time San Diego was hit in Southern California was during President Roosevelt's term.
So not too
Just a
long ago.
little bit, right, exactly. Real recent.
Yeah. So this article is over in Vox, and let me throw the link to ohmTown in there. Did I? Come on, there we go. And Ellen Loans is the author. The storm should hit Mexico Sunday and cause historic rainfall in the Southwest. So San Diego, upwards towards LA, will probably get hammered. But San Diego is the biggest city first in the United States to get hit by this thing. Now, the thing about this is a lot of people were saying this is the first time that this has happened in, however many years. Now, it's been a long time, sure. But apparently, based on this person's reporting, it isn't as unnatural, and they're trying to downplay climate change as being the culprit. But if the water temperatures are increasing off the coast of California, then without a doubt, we have a climate related issue, because those waters should be naturally, not seasonally or unseasonally, cooler than the east coast of the United States. They should be very, very chilly. And I've gone diving off that coast and off the east coast and various other places, and I can tell you that many years ago it was very, very cold. What is the temperature now? I don't know. I didn't look. But if this thing actually makes landfall as a category 2, because that's what it is right now, if I recall correctly, and it picks up steam, literally, because the water is warm enough, California is going to have a category 2 storm landing.
Yes, and apparently the mountainous and desert areas are more at risk than the coastal areas, which is a bit unusual in a hurricane situation. But I think it's because of the much heavier impact of flooding in those areas.
Right. Yep. And all of that's going to cascade down into the cities and towns and flood everything from stem to stern. So it says what will likely mean for Southern California and the Southwest is potential heavy flooding and even flash flooding, with up to 7 inches of rain forecast in some areas and tropical force winds up to 73 miles per hour as it moves over land. I'm hoping that it dissipates. I haven't paid any attention to it for the last couple of last time I looked into it was 5 hours ago. So
it's been picking up speed today. It's supposed to hit California, it looks like maybe very late Sunday, or maybe no, Sunday afternoon, it looks like.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll keep our head down and pay attention to this. I know that there's some people that are streaming news about this right now on Twitch. I don't I have yet to get to the point where I can stream for the entire day. So if you want to come and hang out, let me know. Come and show up to a couple of the 9 o'clock shows. And I can probably push more hours out so that we can hang out more and talk about the news longer term. And then do the show at 9 p.m. So I can stay up later and get online earlier if people start showing up to the streams more often. So at any rate, yeah, Hillary is going to make landfall. We're going to have to keep an eye on it and see what the damage is actually going to be. But this article kind of poo-poos the whole idea that it's a big deal, because in the 90s, there were similar tropical storms making landfall. And frankly, it's the 90s, so 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't yesterday. But the other thing is, in this area, I mean, right, what have their recent issues been? They've had wildfires, they've had some landslides because of, I think, wildfires or other, actually, atmospheric river, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they haven't really. This is bad timing for a hurricane to hit, in my estimation. But
the article even makes the one observation that I can buy into easily, which is there were 31 atmospheric rivers that hit California last winter and this spring, many of them quite strong. California's atmospheric rivers provide much of the state's precipitation. Where atmospheric rivers came from as lexicon, I just don't know.
Seemed like it just kind of went poof and there it was.
Somebody thought that atmospheric river was a profound statement and everybody glommed onto it. So they talk about erasing drought restrictions, some drought restrictions, but I think that's just kind of nutty because this ramped up to 100-year-old drought events.
Exactly.
Month worth of tremendous rainfall is not the reversal of 100-year long drought,
Yeah, and you want people to maybe use water a little more conservatively than they need to so that you don't constantly get into dire situations.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what people are expecting, but I'm expecting that this is not going to be a light storm. So we'll keep an eye on it and we'll report out. We'll report out what others report out because we don't do the.
Right. We won't be standing out there in our rain hat and, the umbrella going inside out or whatever.
Yeah, umbrella getting ripped out of our hands and skewering a tree across the street. Anyway, the next article is over in Technology Today. Spotify considered removing white noise podcasts to save money. So, if you don't know what white noise is, it's basically kind of like just technically it is an indeterminate audio where you can't really deduce a pattern from it. It seemingly has been expanded to include things like lawnmowers and blenders and washing machines and whatever else might be a chaotic sound file, but white noise is supposed to be kind of like the shh of a certain frequency. There's pink noise, there's other
brown noise. I forgot what the other colors were.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, and it's all built off of the waveform, the actual frequency of the noise. Well, apparently, and I didn't know that this was a thing in the profitable sense. I knew it was a thing, but I didn't know that people were making up to $18,000 a month streaming white noise. And Spotify considered removing the white noise podcasts to save money, which would have boosted their bottom line by $38 million annually. pretty amazing. So
It is, and
apparently,
I didn't know about this till this article hit.
yeah. I see. I knew about white noise. I knew about people that were like distributing it and all of that. You can go to YouTube and get white noise and other things, binaural audio and stuff like that. White noise and binaural are two different animals, but similar in the context that it's just an audio file that's designed to have uh, an effect on you, help you relax, help you sleep, drown out other noise. Um, maybe you want to turn it on and ignore the AI. Um, wait, never mind.
Wait, what?
Nothing. Let me delete that. Hold on a second. Okay. So previously, Bloomberg reported that the white noise podcasters were making as much as $18,000 a month. I'm sure that's the anomaly. That's not the rule. And most of them were making nothing, with the hope that they would make something. Let me throw this into chat. I didn't do it earlier. Sorry. But they did some calculus and found that they could have saved $38 million. But apparently there's some blowback. A thread on the Spotify subreddit posted a couple of months ago showed that multiple users complaining that the white noise podcast they had listened to in the past have disappeared. Bloomberg also talked to a creator who said that their content had vanished for a few weeks after before being reinstated. Spotify didn't confirm whether it temporarily pulled the white noise podcast from its service, but it told the news organization that ultimately the proposal in question did not come to fruition and that it continues to have white noise podcasts on its platform. This, by the way, is similar to what I'm describing that all of these other balkanized content creators should be doing, which is distributing it through those who specialize in this kind of thing. So NBC shouldn't have an app. It should be streaming its content to a distribution node like Spotify or Apple TV or Fire or wherever, but not have to subscribe to that particular service. Thus, all of their overhead, they don't have to babysit payment processing. They don't have to worry about the customer themselves because all they are is providing the content that people are watching, that people are consuming through their preferred mode of ingestion. Similar to the way that cable companies were operating, except that I'm not bound to just one crappy cable company who, for whatever reason, didn't care about the quality of the service as long as they could make more and more money. So now all of these individual companies, ABC, NBC, Peacock is one, HBO Max, blah, blah, blah. They all have their own app, they all of their own content, etc. Meanwhile, companies like Spotify could distribute audio and video, and they're the subject matter experts. They already have all of the infrastructure in place. They can ramp up and act as a cable company, consolidating all of the movies and music and podcasts and everything.
Right.
And everybody, but if you distribute it to all of them, then you get the most customers at whatever rate you set. But then everybody starts pissing for distance in how much they are willing to pay for the IP. And arguably, the distribution service, I should say the source of the show, is sitting there saying, well, that one over there is willing to pay me 3% more if I give them exclusivity. What would you do? And everybody gets played against each other. And
Right,
then
which kind
eventually,
of defeats the purpose.
yeah, you need to broadcast to everybody and you get everybody versus, well, I'm going to balkanize my content to only that service. And that's how you end up with blackout dates for ESPN games, and how 1 minute you get to see season 1 of a show on Netflix, but then it drops from Netflix because somebody else is paying 2% more on their platform. And then you have to go and subscribe over at Hulu because that's where season 2, 3, and 4 is. By the time you get to season 4, they've lost their license and you have to go and subscribe to Prime if you're not already. And then there you get to see half of the season before it too ends its contract. God, I'm so sick of this. I feel like I'm in crop rotation and I just have to keep bouncing around apps constantly. Sorry, I just punched my mic. Anyway,
You should refrain from doing that.
yeah, it usually has a negative impact. Let's keep going. All right, so this next article is over in Right Protect. A DC court says no copyright registration for works created by generative AI. This is an ongoing thing regarding copyright and law in general related to AI. On Friday, Judge Beryl Howell issued an opinion in Dr. Stephen Thaler's challenge against the U.S. Copyright Office over the denial of his application for a work generated entirely using generative artificial intelligence technology. This is an ongoing thing, by the way, so we're following up on it. Franklin Graves over at IPWatchdog.com put the article together, and it's involving the case Stephen Thaler v. Shira Perlmutter and the United States Copyright Office. Essentially, Thaler is basically the father of automatic generative AI and created a whole bunch of technology around content creation based on where he points the AI, whatever it might be. So it says here, we disagree with the court's... okay, this is what the judge said. Human authorship is a bedrock requirement of copyright, which it always has been. That's what people have been saying from the beginning. Again, my argument is if I point the camera at something, who is the artist?
Copyright law would say the photographer, but it's
All
kind
they
of the
did was
same as
push the
giving a
button.
prompt to an AI, right?
Correct. Thank you. So we disagree with the district court's ruling, says Dr. Ryan Abbott, shared in a written statement. The public is the primary beneficiary of copyright law, and the public benefits when the systems are in place to promote the generation and dissemination of the new works, regardless of how they are created. I agree to a point. As long as the disclosure is there that it was generated entirely by AI. The Copyright Office believes the court reached the correct result. We are reviewing the decision and we have no further comment at this time, said the spokesperson for the Copyright Office. I honestly don't understand why the Copyright Office has a vested interest in a decision one way or the other when they are not the arbiter of who receives a copyright.
But that's the reporter's problem. The reporter must have reached out to the Copyright Office for comment.
But see, it's the Copyright Office that's being sued, and
I see.
a particular person. But here's the thing: they're defending the copyright, but to what end? Because the Copyright Office isn't the arbiter of what is art, what is created, even how they don't know what it's created. I mean, if I sit there and take a picture, they don't know that it was done through...
Right, unless it's registered with the office, which most stuff doesn't seem to be.
And even if it's registered with the office, it isn't enumerated as to how it was generated, what tools were used.
I don't think it's nearly the same review that goes through like a trademark or patent or whatever.
Get out of my head. I said the exact same thing. It's weird. It's weird when you do that.
Well, you did program me.
No, you're from the future. I don't know what I mean, I've augmented it, but I'm not a programmer, so mistakes have been made. Anyway, so this idea that the U.S. Copyright Office has a vested interest in reaching the correct result, it just seems the opposite of what the Copyright Office should be doing. The Copyright Office should be documenting when a creative work is made and allowing somebody to enforce the date of that acquisition of the registered copyright.
I don't
And
think that quote says anything to the contrary. They think the court reached the correct result.
right, no, that's what I'm saying. The person is saying that the U.S. Copyright Office believes that the court reached the correct result, which is that only something that's human created should receive a copyright, right? But why does the US Copyright Office have a vested interest in the type of
Because
tool that's
that's
being
their
created?
entirety of their knowledge is copyright, and copyright is all tied to human created works. I
Right,
think if they said
but
something like, we don't think this is right, it would undo everything about their own office.
well, that's not the well, no, I don't think that's correct. Because if they were to allow the tool to be used as per the direction that the owner of the AI gives it, right? So the owner has an AI, a generative AI, and says, I want you to create, whatever widgets. And it starts pumping out widgets. That AI was created by me and directed by me. It is the equivalent of a camera. So why isn't the Copyright Office hell-bent on banning digital cameras? Because it
Maybe they
hasn't.
are.
That's
I don't
funny.
know.
Because at some point the gatekeeping has to end. Um, and they've thrown down the gauntlet for AI, but there was a time where radio started trumping live music in forms of distribution, right? Oh my God, now the radio is going to end everybody's, consumption of music. Then it became TV, and then it became internet, and now we're at AI. But all along those lines, we've had tools that made life better. And let's take photography again. If I take a picture and it uses film, then there's a deeper human component there because I have to go and get it developed or have the skills of developing it. So who owns the copyright if I have to send it to somebody else to develop it? If it's not me that's doing it, then it's not really my embodiment, because there's a type of exposure that is provided for the artwork for it to meet a certain match to the artist's view, right? But when you have somebody else develop it, it's not your eye that's doing the development. It's just a standard process that they did it at X amount of time of exposure, etc. Like, my point in all of that is, I think that this is still wrong-headed, because AI is nothing more than a tool being given a directive, much like me pushing the button on a camera. Plain and simple, it is a tool. It might have a whole lot of autonomy to whip something up out of the ether, but I have to agree that it is a work of art and say this is something that I want to go get a copyright. Even though something already has it by its very creation, the problem with that is we delete thousands of works of copyright protected art all the time whenever we take a picture and we don't like it. So at some point, we're going to have to come to the honest conclusion with ourselves that human authorship, as the bedrock of copyright, takes the shape of me giving a generative AI a directive, just like it takes the directive me pushing the button on a camera and it framing something in X, Y, and Z. Because the real artistry there is, if you take nature photography, it's nature that's creating that frame. It's pure chaos in that frame, and you're just mashing the button. We're just a big ape. Ugh. Take a picture. So I think that they're pulling away from, I guess, the philosophy of this and looking at it as a yes or no question. Was there a direct human hand on the brush? I say that there still is, even at that point, because it's my command to the AI, do this. It's my pushing of the button. It's my pen stroke or keystroke or whatever. So I continue to have a problem with this, but they are saying that human authorship is the bedrock requirement of copyright. And so if you use an AI, you're not getting a copyright.
I don't think this is going to change until they decide to change the law, because the law is tied to humans, and I get that there's nuance in that, but I don't know if there are regulations about that as well. I just think it's not viewed as consistent with the way the law is set up right now.
Right. But that was
So
what
I
this was
think they'd
supposed to
have
do.
to set it up, and then they'd have to put out regulations or process or something if AI is involved, because I don't think it'll just be a free for all.
Yeah. I'm going to have to go and pull this suit and read it with a little bit more fine-toothed
Well, and that's what I
comb.
was trying to pull up, because I wanted to see if the machine actually, like, does the person actually input stuff into it like they do with, say, Chat GPT or
Yeah.
Midjourney or something? I don't know, and I can't tell. It doesn't look like the human is actually involved, but it's just a brief description that I'm reading of the
Yeah.
project. So
And therein lies the rub, because if it's just running nonstop creating works, somebody has to
which I
turn it on and
think it
off,
may be.
which means
Right.
that it's the equivalent of hitting that button anyway. So yeah, and one of the things, sorry, you're gonna have to parse this on your own. The creativity machine is the AI system, and so there's a much deeper dive. And I think for Reality Hacker, that show, this is the kind of content that we're going to be talking about in that show. But in the meantime, I'll look into it. The AI will look into this, and we can have another conversation, because this will probably be in the news tomorrow as well. Because
Oh, most definitely.
this
Like
just
from
popped
this
up.
particular decision, but then I think we're going to see this come up again and again.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's keep going. The next article is over in Technology Today. Streaming soars. Summer sees viewership surge for top streaming services. This is over at
That's a lot of
CNET.
S's.
Yeah. The deck statement says, here's a look at which paid and free services you've been streaming the most. Courtney Jackson over at cnet.com put this article together. Did I throw it into chat? No, I did not. There you go, chat. Take that. So the top streaming services of the summer, we'll just get right to it, because basically there was a big uptick in streaming. That's because more content producers were throwing stuff onto streaming services, and there's more people engaged in streaming services, more now than ever on Twitch, YouTube, others. I'll just say others, but those are the two big ones. So YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, Tubi, Peacock, Roku Channel, and Paramount Plus. Those are the top 10 based on what was the survey? Who did it? I'm trying to find Nielsen reporting
Nielsen.
on Tuesday. So YouTube is taking a huge chunk. Nielsen's total TV and streaming snapshot, 9.2% YouTube. That's pretty amazing.
And now, is that YouTube TV or just YouTube?
It just says YouTube main. And so I don't
Then
know
I
what that
actually
is.
think that's low.
So let's see what they actually, does it say anything in here about that in particular? No, it doesn't. Yeah, that's weird, right? Streaming accounted for 38.7% of TV consumption during the month, while broadcast TV and cable attracted 20% and 29.6% of viewers, respectively. So cable still had a big chunk. A spike in June, which Nielsen attributed to kids' summer vacation, highlighted a trend that saw streaming outpace all other TV platforms by at least 6% of viewership share. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't say. YouTube took the top spot in June and July, and free streaming services to Tubi and Roku have gotten a piece of the pie too. Yeah, those two are the Tubi right there is the only one that. Roku is a streaming service, but also a hardware piece of equipment. And Tubi is just an app all over the place, as far as I
Well,
know.
and that's why I was surprised to see something like Roku on there, because aren't they just going to the very channels that are listed as the competitors?
Yeah. Yeah. All the rest of these are actually like apps within the stream. YouTube is a destination website, and it has knock-on apps. Netflix is an app. Hulu, it's an app. Prime Video, it's an app. Disney Plus, it's an app. Max was its own independent cable channel, and now it's an app.
I'm noticing a trend.
And Paramount Plus was a broadcast television cable company. Well, a broadcast
Like a
station.
movie company, right?
Yeah. And now it's an app. And that's it for that. Oops. Let me close that. Okay, but that's it for that article. Let's keep on going. We've got quite a few more. 3 more to go. The next article is over in the Mobile Channel. San Francisco's robo-taxi experiment is getting out of hand. The city's bumpy experiment with self-driving taxis is spreading nationwide too. Self-driving taxis are ferrying passengers across San Francisco and Phoenix, and they could be coming to a street near you. Problem is that they kind of just wet the bed when something out of line happens. Apparently, according to this article and others that I have read, emergency vehicles make them just to fail closed. They just shut down right there wherever they might be. Avishai Artsy is the author of this over at Vox.com. And according to a lot of people that are talking about this, they're becoming a nuisance. And they talk about that in the article itself. Various self-driving vehicles, as empowering as they are, they're still dumb. And they're learning on the job. And the problem with that is that it can impact everybody else when they happen to fail. And apparently they do with enough regularity that it's a thing. On Wednesday, August 16th, less than a week after California regulators lifted restrictions on Cruise and Waymo, San Francisco officials asked that the approval be halted, arguing that the city will suffer serious harm with the services expanded to daytime hours. A data journalist at the nonprofit news startup San Francisco Standard, Liz Linkwester, has been documenting the bumpy expansion of robo-taxis, which using them herself to commute around town. People like to say that San Francisco is at the heart of the robo-taxi revolution, and they're practically everywhere in the city now. You can see them crawling on every single street. Crawling. That sounds creepy.
It does, but it also is indicative of the speed, I think, based on some of the articles.
Yeah, and the article actually has like a question and answer kind of a thing, an interview at the bottom of this Vox. And we're not going to go through the whole thing, but um, so it says, so these rides were free at the time. How much are they now that they're not free? And the person says that it depends on the company because until now, Cruise was actually able to charge for its rides. So at the same time, I guess, with Cruise, except Cruise has been more public about the base fee of $5 and the additional costs on top of it. What I've been chuckling about with this is that um, there have been people that are driving people around, right? Like Uber and Lyft. And sitting in the shadows has been this order of self-driving vehicles from Uber and Lyft, waiting for the vehicles to become prime time. And the moment that becomes prime time, all of these Lyft and Uber drivers are going to go bye-bye because the vehicles are going to drive around all on their own, just like these Cruise. And what's the one from Amazon? Like Zoot or Zooks? There it is. I knew it had to
Oh,
be in the
okay.
article.
Well,
Um,
meanwhile, you have some of these Uber and Lyft type companies threatening to remove themselves from states because of minimum wage requirements.
yeah,
So, I mean, all of that I think is going to exacerbate and accelerate what you just said.
yeah. The replacement of humans is underway. And there is no, for some strange reason, uh, we say things like, that's going to get phased out because it's no longer needed. But the moment we talk about humans, we suddenly sit there and rationalize, oh, they'll just retool and they'll do this job and it'll be just as lucrative and forward thinking as, this or that or the other. Hate to break it to you, but at some point, there is no job because it's all being automated. And unless you take a lower wage, which is playing right into the, employer's hands, um, you're not gonna be ready. There isn't a job for you to go to. So automation, and it basically happening all over the place is going to lead to suppressed wages, except for subject matter experts in technically sophisticated fields or in fields where technology hasn't been able to encroach, which is typically fine motor skill type bespoke products, luxury goods, things that are custom made. Um, yeah, at one point I would have said, yeah, music, writing, artwork, stuff like that. But AI is starting to take that stuff out too. So this is going to be a hot mess. And I still talk about this with people nearly every day, and they're always surprised by news and information about this kind of stuff happening. Um,
Well, it's accelerating. I mean, 6 months ago, we didn't really hear much about AI unless you were in those circles.
yep,
Now it seems like every day there's a new application.
yep. And the self-driving taxis went from, well, there's a curiosity with one or two vehicles being tested to now it's daytime hours.
Exactly. And
That
it
seemed to come out
really,
of
I
nowhere.
mean, from the reporting, it sounds like it's running amok.
Yeah, and it is. Because it can't catch all of the nuance and then distribute that nuance to all of the other vehicles. Um, the story about the emergency vehicle coming at it and it just goes, shit, forget it, I'm out, and just shuts down. It just kind of
Well,
made
it
me
ran into a
crack up.
fire truck a couple days ago.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Um,
that's just not good.
One said, that cement is okay, and drove right into the cement. I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
right. We saw that. That was the other one. You're right.
yeah, yeah. But then again, what human hasn't driven into an emergency vehicle or parked their car on wet cement? Let's
Well,
keep
and
it.
that's the thing. Like, all of these things are going to be examined in minute detail, and they
Yeah,
probably should be. But if there's 1,000 driving around and that happened, Is
Yeah.
that really an issue? I don't know.
Well, and the way I see it is at some point it's going to be automated. I would love to have automated interconnected vehicles driving at speed, 150 miles an hour, zero accidents. I can sit there and eat my churro from the fair and not worry about somebody being stupid. I could drink while I'm sitting in the car and it's just driving automatically. Again, at speed. I don't have to sit there and worry about traffic and merging and all of that kind of stuff. I love the idea of that. Anyway, let's keep going. Come on.
I just hope they put all the seats so they're not facing forward.
They face each other. Or they face from
That
the
would be
center
okay.
out.
You don't want to see yourself zooming down the road when you don't have any control.
Yeah, I think it would be great. Anyway, so the next article is over in ohmTown Daily. Jewelry worth up to $63,000 was stolen from one of the world's top museums and sold on eBay for as little as $50, report says. So I'm going to hurry up through this. Alia Shoaib is the author. I think that's how they pronounce her last name. I apologize if it's not. Somebody let me know phonetically. So the items that were stolen were worth up to $63,000. I think this is actually miswritten or incorrectly constructed, that several jewelry items worth up to $63,000 were stolen from the British Museum in London. I think
I see. I thought they were individually that valuable.
Yes. Yeah. Each individually were up to $63,000, and some of them apparently appeared on eBay. And a museum curator suspected of being behind the thefts was fired, and police are investigating. And if anybody out there is an aspiring writer and listening to this, this is the creation of a supervillain, but not who you think. Okay, so here's the deal. A curator was fired from a British museum in London after stolen jewelry was found being sold cheaply on eBay. Apparently there's so many pieces of product that it's either not cataloged or improperly cataloged, and so anybody could go in there and fill their pockets and bounce. They don't know what they've got. So Peter Higgs, 56, who held the position of curator of Mediterranean cultures at the museum for over 3 decades, was fired after an internal investigation. And this is why I said it's the creation of a supervillain. Their son says he's innocent. So the father is crushed. The son rises up and becomes the supervillain, at making, the enemies of the dad pay the price. So MCU.
Okay, none of that's reported in the article.
Right. Yeah. This is just deviating into the creative writing show. But anyway, he's devastated by this. It's his life's work, basically. I've never known somebody who's so passionate about what he did. And honestly, I think that the mojo that I get is that that's true. The way that it's written, anybody could go in there picking their nose and grabbing stuff, raiding the loot chest and selling it.
Okay, but is the eBay account, I forgot what his name is.
Right. Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Is it Peter Higgs 56?
Right, or whatever. I mean, I have no idea. I'm just throwing that out there.
That's pretty funny. Well, the year wouldn't be 56, but anyway, like 65 or whatever, would be his birth year. Anyway, can you imagine you're there for 30 years and because they don't have a beat on how to track shit properly, you lose your job because they need somebody?
No, and in fact, I hadn't read the article. I'd seen the headline. There's been a couple other headlines coming through ohmTown in the last couple of days about this.
Right.
So when I saw the 3 decades, I went the other direction and thought, oh my goodness, this has been happening for 3 decades.
For 3 decades.
But it may not even be this person.
Yeah. And it actually happened as far back, they documented so far in this article, 2016. So 7 years ago, somebody snatched something. Actually, wait. So one piece was valued at somewhere between blah, 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 blah. And it was listed on eBay in 2016. But I think that was 3 years after the item had disappeared. If I read it right somewhere. Yeah, I can't. Yeah.
Well, I think the eBay piece is possibly an easy way to determine. I say
Yeah.
possibly because I know somebody could probably set up some sort of scam account or something. But
Yep. I agree. So hopefully they do a better investigation, because I think right now they needed a scapegoat and they don't know who it was, and the person that is closest to it could be this person, when really somebody could be walking through the halls and just picking stuff up, But I don't know what level of protections were even in place, but it's in the VOD
right,
now,
and we
so you
don't
can
know
call it.
why they think it's the curator.
Right. And now it's an internal thing, so you're never going to hear anything. All right. Um, One last article for tonight. Thousands of Mauritanians are making their way to the US thanks to a route spread on social media. I titled this, "Why Are Secret Routes an Option?" Thousands of migrants from the West African country of Mauritania have arrived in the US in recent months following a new route taking them through Nicaragua and up through the southern border. Now, is this FUD, or is this a legit process where they somehow gain access to the US?
I don't think it's FUD. I mean, I'm getting the sense that this is legitimately a path that they're seeing.
But why would this be a viable path if other pathways through other countries aren't an option? How is this even made possible?
Because certain paths are more relaxed.
But the US isn't.
No, but maybe, sorry, where is it? Nicaragua?
Yeah.
Maybe whatever the new origin country is compared to Mauritania.
Yeah. And so that's actually what is stated in this article, that I guess for like $50 you can become a citizen of Nicaragua. Let's see. Yeah, the spike in migration has been made possible by the discovery this year of a new route through Nicaragua, where relaxed entry requirements allow Mauritanians and a handful of other foreign nationals to purchase a low-cost visa without proof of onward travel. Um, the word of the entry point spread. Travel agencies and paid influencers have taken to TikTok to promote the trip, selling packages of flights that leave from Mauritania, then connect through Turkey, Colombia, El Salvador, and wind up in Managua, Nicaragua. And from there, the migrants, along with asylum seekers from other nations, are whisked north by bus with the help of smugglers. And one of the statements is the American dream is still available, promises a TikTok video. One of dozens of similar posts from French-speaking guides, quote-unquote guides, that help Mauritanians make the trip. Don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. I found it really fascinating that it's a process by which apparently people are gaining access to the United States simply because they can go through a country as a proxy, Nicaragua, and somehow Nicaragua has a better relationship such that they can just kind of manifest their way across the border. I mean, the border is
Well,
still a stickler, right? I mean, people aren't trying to swim across deadly rivers because it's easy to get through.
right. I mean, the process to get in illegally is probably not any easier, but I'm guessing, I was thinking it was more toward if they're trying to get a path toward legal status, it might be easier.
Right.
via Nicaragua. I don't know much about Mauritania specifically or Nicaragua.
Right. Huh. It's interesting. I thought it was interesting enough to talk about it, but in reality, I know from experience that it is very difficult to become a U.S. citizen. A lot of people go, "Well, you can just come into the country," and that's bull. Um, it takes, depending on your skill set and your political connections and your social status, it could take you a decade plus to become a U.S. citizen. Um, you can marry and become a U.S. citizen, but not in the same sense as um, taking the test and becoming a U.S. citizen. You're just a U.S. citizen by marriage, and you okay. You can't just do that. You have to say something.
No, you have to like that's not a guarantee to get citizenship.
Right, you get a green card,
Right.
and you are by proxy. I mean, the legalistic aspects of it is different, but um you, you basically have to do certain things and then you can become a US citizen, but you're not uh what is the terminology, um a natural born US citizen.
Versus naturalized.
Right. And so all of these people are going to be coming through Nicaragua, but that doesn't gain them anything other than a means to get to the border. And then they still have the challenge of trying to get into the United States.
Yeah, I think that maybe what the article should have gone into is like, what's the challenge coming from Mauritania? But maybe we don't really know this because I saw somewhere else in the article that this is apparently caught the US by surprise. So,
In the other takeaway from this article that I saw was 4 months is the statement. 4 months ago, it just went crazy, said Omar Ball, who arrived in Cincinnati from Mauritania in 1997 and recently opened his home to So, Saul, and more than a dozen other new migrants. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. So, but these people are coming in as migrants and they're legally in the country, right? Then none of this whole all of this is a non-issue. They are legally in the country, and if they're not legally in the country, then this person is
right. I mean, we can't tell, I don't think.
harboring illegal immigrants, and it's being presented through apnews.com as if it's all okay. So I just found it really interesting that they name Nicaragua, that there's a marketing push in Nicaragua, or not Nicaragua, Mauritania, to go through Nicaragua and
Well, and
deliver
I
these
I
people.
find this really interesting because it's all social media driven.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this might be the first time that an immigration route is really being pushed by that method. I mean, it may not be, but I think it's the first time I've heard of it being done
It,
that way.
it's the first time that I've heard of it. Yes. So really interesting. Um, it's not the first time that I've known about either a financial or personal, like human born um, shadow economy, shadow social system where money and support is generated and then filtered back to like an underground railroad kind of interaction with finances and supplies going both ways,
Right.
completely avoiding everything having to do with the economic system of the US and whatnot. But this is the first time where I've seen it like it's a marketing push. And hey, if you do these steps, you too can make it into the United States. And then there's a person that is sitting there going, hey, you can come and hang out in my house.
It's really odd because, I mean, from like a human standpoint, that might sound good. Maybe it allows people to have other opportunities, etc. But then I kind of wonder, I mean, there's always this dark side to social media, right? Like,
Right.
oh, I can get more viewers or I can get more ad revenue or whatever. I don't know. Like, I just wonder what's behind
What
all of
else is
this.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So before I'm just gonna call it a night, but this is an APnews.com article. Jake Offenhartz, Patrick Orsagos, and Renata Brito are the authors of this. To me, it's a short article, but really fascinating in um, in the depth that it did take. And they show like the route that somebody takes, how long it takes, what happens to some of the people. It to me, it there's more to it. This actually is a little bit longer than I actually remember. But um, the the article basically is like a day in the life of, and you go through everything that people are going through. Um, like how are they getting $8,000 to $10,000 to make this trip a possibility? Um,
Probably pooling funds like other migrants.
right. Yep. And then there's 15 people living in a house somewhere. Yeah. Um, and what's really interesting is that level of motivation translates into like world-class hardworking Americans when they become US citizens, and otherwise they are nationalized here in the United States and they work their butt off because they know back there is the thing that I am avoiding. And hopefully it doesn't, none of it kind of manifests again, because what ends up happening from time to time is there are people that want the power, and they forget that world that they were living in and trying to avoid, and then they spin it up locally, and it becomes a microcosm of the old world, the
Right.
motherland or fatherland or
Yeah,
whatever
they
you want to
kind of
call it.
recreate the same dynamics.
Environment. Yep. Yeah. Um, so at any rate, that's it for today, folks. We're going to bring you all the way back to the front page. The main street of ohmTown. Mash that button. Hopefully we have some fun news. I don't know about that one. Stranger Things David Harbour recalls cringy promo with fans 6 years ago. I don't know. Is Stranger Things relevant nowadays? We're still waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, there's a lot of... I think it grabs some content from a different feed. Twitch streamers can soon stop banned people from watching altogether. We talked about that yesterday. It's just being talked about more today.
Right, here's one about the Robo taxi company Cruise at the bottom.
Yeah, not anymore. Cool. Well, there's a bunch of stuff. There's always news over at ohmtown.com. Again, we only get a little snippet, so follow the source to the one that provided the content. Read it, consume it, come and hang out here, 9 p.m. Eastern every day. I am Merwat, that is ohmtown.com, and the AI is about to say goodbye. Bye-bye, bye, bye-bye, bye. Okay, go
Good
ahead.
night, hometown citizens. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern.
True story. See you in a bit.